Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to the ODPP Café. My name is Anita Onuko. This show is brought to you by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, and we are live on Facebook. It's always an opportunity to learn about the law. We are now on our 34th episode, and it's been a great journey of learning how the criminal justice system works. Karibu sana to the show once again, and we hope that you are following us on our social media pages. On Twitter, we are at ODPP_KE. On Facebook, we are at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, and on YouTube as well, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. We welcome you to subscribe, we welcome you to follow our pages and engage with us on matters concerning the criminal justice system. I don't know about you, but I have learned a lot the last 33 episodes or more. I feel like I can now I discuss these things with some confidence because I have knowledge from what I've learned on the show. So feel free to let us know where you're tuned in from. You can comment on this on the comment section, ask a question, you can seek clarification. There are experts waiting to just respond to you, and we'll also sample some of your comments at the end of this discussion. Like always, we normally start with a quick sneak into the courts, and the disclaimer as always that this is not exhaustive. We just picked a few of the cases in courts, and of course a bit of what has been happening at the ODPP, like the news from ODPP. So I will start with the courts today, what we have from the courts. And just give me a minute, I start my slide. So I will start with the murder trial of Daisila Lesoipa. The name is quite difficult to pronounce. But the prosecution, led by Paris Minor, assisted by Esther Kimani, presented the first witness in the case where Lucy Njuguna and John Gakenya are charged with the murder of Daisila Lesoipa, alias Leila. The witness, a legal assistant in a Nakuru law firm, told the court that the deceased was their client and the accused persons had forged a will and death certificate that belonged to her while she was still alive. I don't know whether you saw this, but it was quite an interesting story. He added that he learned about the forgery when a succession case was filed by Gakenya and company advocates and was purported to be signed by the deceased. The prosecution will present its second witness as the hearing continues next week. The next case is on the Kisumu County fraud case. Former Lake Basin Development Authority MD Peter Abok and 12 others were charged afresh before Senior Principal Magistrate Eunice Newto after the court allowed the prosecution to amend the charge sheet where the two cases were consolidated. It is alleged that between 2nd November and 2012 and 2nd May 2018, the accused persons conspired to commit an offense of corruption leading to a loss of 4.5 million from Kisumu County. And this is just one of the things we'll be talking about today. Not the case, but the whole idea about Chapter 6 of the Constitution and integrity of public officers. So they denied all the 21 counts, which includes engaging in a project without prior planning, willful failure to comply with the law, and lawful issuance of a guarantee of the public finance management, fraudulent acquisition of public property, among others, 21 counts. So the case was adjourned for pre-trial on 8th November 2021. So this case was consolidated and it now goes in as one. The next story I have is on the Willie Kimani murder case. The prosecution cross-examined Frederick Leliman, one of the AP officers charged with the murder of lawyer Willie Kimani, his client Joseph Mwenda, and their taxi driver Joseph Mwerori. Leliman admitted to shooting Mwenda with his personal Seska pistol, but denied having shot him twice, as submitted by the prosecution. Wow, I will hold my comments on that, but quite interesting. The prosecution, through Fred Ojambo, further showed the accused medical documents which said Mwendwa had gun wounds on his upper arm and the chest. Leliman, who is charged alongside AP officers Leonard Mwangi, Stephen Cheburet, Sylvia Wanjiko, and police informant Peter Nguge, also admitted to owning a Nissan Wing Road, which has been linked to the killings. The case has also been adjourned until December 14th. The next story is about a woman who's charged with theft and drugging a victim. The woman was charged with administering a stupefying drug, I think we call it mchele, to a businessman's food and stealing 1 million from him after a night of drinking. Wow. The prosecution submitted Virginia Wangoi on May 29th 2021 at Rista's guest house in Umoja Estate, jointly with another not before the court, with intent to commit a felony, namely stealing, administering salicides, poisoning a stupefying drug, mchele, to Bernard Cheruyot Chirchir. So the case, it's quite recent, and I think I also watched it on TV about this, somebody losing 1 million after a night of drinking and fun. She was also charged that between May 29th and May 31st, 2021 at the guest house, she stole a mobile phone valued at 30,000, one Equity Bank ATM ID, and cash valued at 1.12 million, the property of Chirchir. Wangui denies the charges, and she was remanded at industrial area pending to be released on bond. The case will be mentioned on 12th November. Every time we talk about bond and bail, I like reminding people that it doesn't mean somebody has been set free, only that they're not within the prison system, but they still be responding to their, answering to their cases. So it is just an agreement they have with the court. But of course, if you wanasema ukikiuka bail terms, then you are definitely taken back in. So one of the lessons we've learned here on the show. The other case is about a man charged with arson. A man alleged to have locked his mother inside her house before setting it ablaze was charged with arson at the Kibera Law Courts. The prosecution submitted that on November 6th at Dagoretti in Nairobi, following a drinking spree, I thought so, Joseph Njuguna willfully and unlawfully set the house worth 1.3 million on fire with his mother inside. Wanasema pombe si supu. You can see what this one almost kills his mom in this incident here. So he denied the charges before Senior Principal Magistrate Esther Boke, and he was released on a 500,000 bond, and his case will be mentioned on November 22nd. And lastly, it's news from ODPP. The ODPP called for interagency collaboration and coordination in order to safeguard the digital space ahead of the upcoming 2022 elections. We are in the period, as you can see. So the DPP, through SADPP Lillian Okumu, pointed out that there are numerous statutes in place to properly regulate the public and the various policies in different agencies that guide them in undertaking their mandates. So this is about election, and we're just going to talk about it right now, and we'll hear what our experts have to say about the digital space when it comes to matters of integrity. So Lillian said that witness intimidation still remains as a major roadblock in effectively delivering a conviction, with members of the public often afraid of speaking up against people in authority. So Hate Speech and Election Justice Division, which one of our guests heads, has been set up at the ODPP in order to deal with arising cases heading to the elections. So that is as far as we heard from the courts and news from ODPP. But today I want us to go back. Remember when we started this show, we had something called Semana Prosecutor. And I just want us to run a clip on what Madam Lillian had said so that we can pick up from that conversation. So just listen to this.
When it comes to the prosecution, the prosecution office, how have you managed to navigate with other agencies, because as Joseph mentioned, it's kind of like a multi-agency and stakeholder approach. How have you managed to use what has come to your attention to prosecute effectively? Because I think once the public sees prosecutions happening real time and regularly, it gives the impetus that something is being done to address it. How can you speak to the prosecution process and the success of it as well?
So thank you again for putting us in a panel of different agencies, and this is really important. And so I'll start with the importance of interagency cooperation, which I'm already seeing here. For us to be able to tackle the issues of elections, we must, and I'm using the word must, I hope it's in capital, we must cooperate, collaborate, and coordinate with each other, not only as government agencies, but also with non-state actors, because elections affects everybody, and it basically determines what the sort of life that we can live as Kenyans, and what our constitutions makes us to aspire for. So thank you so much for this initiative, and we are very glad to be part of it, and we are hoping to be part of many others. So what are we doing as an office of the DPP? or rather, should I ask, what are we doing as a government to ensure that we are having a safe and fair elections, especially with regards to the digital space? So the first thing I want to emphasize is on that, as we're speaking now, we have various laws in place. We have the old one, the penal code, that speaks to elections in terms of incitement. We have the NCIC Act. We have the Cybercrime Act, the one that you just alluded to, Computer and Cybercrime Act. We have the act that regulates him, and of course, we also have the Data Protection Act. So speaking from where I sit, we already have, if I may say, more than sufficient legislation in place to be able to properly regulate what you're supposed to be doing. And in addition to that, I think various agencies also have various policies in place. And for instance, like us in the ODPP, we have what you're calling decision to charge. And this is what we'll look at when a file is presented to us to make sure that the evidence in that particular file is sufficient to be able to sustain a conviction, whereby we hope that if you are able to sustain convictions in 1 or 2 cases, then we can build confidence in the Kenyans and ensure that others are not able to commit the similar offenses. So as I've said earlier on, there are various offenses, and the one I'd like to emphasize on is the one of publication of false information. And as earlier on discussed, we know that information is flying very fast. So we are ensuring that we must, as much as the Constitution recognizes the right to speak and right of freedom or whatever you want to say, but that must be spoken within the context of the Constitution, such that if you're going to be speaking about hate speech, then that one is a crime. And if such a file is presented to us by the NCIC, then we'll be able to prosecute the same. So I just carried a list of some selected cases that we've already started prosecutions, and we are hoping that with, by the time the elections will be happening next year, we'll have already gotten convictions, just to show that we are very serious about hate speech and related cases. We are also very serious about incitement, because we know that sometimes incitement can really cause damage. But one of the challenges, if I may go ahead, is that sometimes as a prosecution authority or even the investigators, the witnesses are not able to come forward and give evidence. So if you allow me, I'll just give you an example of some times back. There was a very senior Mheshimiwa who went publicly and said that certain people from a certain clan should not be able to stay in a particular region. And that person was charged. And we proceeded on well, but towards the end, I don't know whether some of you remembers when somebody say, Wamasai wote watoke Kayole. And that was captured, I think NTV captured it, and it was all over. But can you imagine, to our disappointment, the person who was able to record that information, the original information, was not able to come forth and give evidence. So we are saying that as much as the prosecution authority is able and willing to prosecute, then we must also have the witnesses who are able to come forward and give evidence, such that if somebody threatens anyone, then that person is able to be prosecuted to logical conclusion. Thank you.
So you've heard what Madam Lillian has said, and she was at a forum organized by Centre for Multi-Party Democracy, and they were discussing about elections and especially what happens on social media. So as I was reading about this topic, I thought to myself that I should ask you, where do you learn your good manners from? Things like honesty, who taught you? How do you operate in honesty as a person? And then in the context of our elections, how do you look at integrity in the leaders you elect? What informs your personal voting pattern? Like Madam Lillian has said, the laws are there, we have them. But then how do we then apply them? How do they make us vote? Do we understand them? So I want to invite our experts, because our campaign drums are sounding louder and louder every day. You'd imagine our elections are in December because of the noise that we're hearing about election. But then our experts are here to talk about ethics and integrity as exposed in Chapter 6 of the Constitution. They're quite passionate about what they do, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves. I'll start with the visitor. Karibu Patrick, please introduce yourself and tell us where you're from and what you do.
Thank you, Anita, for giving me this opportunity. My name is Patrick Owen. I'm a Deputy Director, Ethics Compliance at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. That is where I work. And essentially, my work involves enforcement of Chapter 6.
You're the prefect of Chapter 6.
Well, we enforce, we ensure that the law is complied with, and Chapter 6, the aspirations of Kenyans regarding Chapter 6 are met.
Yes.
Thank you.
Karibu sana Mark yet again to the show.
Thank you very much, Anita, for having me on the show.
Yeah.
My name is Mark Barasa. I work for the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, currently in charge of Hate Speech and Electoral Justice Division. I'm glad to be here once more.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Karibu sana. Mark ni gwiji wa hate speech. Gwiji, Mark pia ndo Mswahili pia hapa atatuambia. I don't know whether you remember, Mark, when we were here last time talking about hate speech, and the lawyer Steve Ogola said we need to look forward to elections like we look forward to Christmas. But each and every election comes up and you are fearful. And then he also said that from their family, from the Ogola family, they are taught that they cannot engage in funny activities. Like, he actually put it on Facebook the other day and said, the stone throwing in Kondele, you will not find an Ogola there because their mother brought them up differently.
Oh, yes.
So when I started the show, I asked, where do people learn their good manners from? Where do we start from? Where do we start with these things of ethics and integrity? Is it at the family level? Because it looks like we are failing in the bigger picture. So then I want to invite you, Patrick, and just give us a textbook definition of ethics.
Thank you, Anita. Perhaps just before I do that, I think it will also be good for the listeners, viewers, perhaps just to understand where we are coming from.
Yes.
As a commission, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is a constitutional body established under Article 79 of the Constitution, and essentially it has four, I would call it four-pronged mandate. One is law enforcement, two is prevention, three is public awareness, and four is promotion of ethical standards. Essentially, that is where now issues of ethics comes in. And essentially, the commission, as established, it has commissioners and the secretariat. And the commission actually has 11 regional offices, the headquarters in Nairobi, and then there are also, our services can be accessed in 50 Huduma centers throughout the country. In terms of ethics, a simple definition is simply being upright, doing what is required, being ethical, doing what is right at all times.
At all times.
At all times.
Yes.
That is what it means.
Imagine an institution has been formed to enforce doing right. Where have we gone wrong, Mark? What is your opinion about ethics? And before you start, what is the mandate of the ODP in terms in this context?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions is established by the Constitution itself under Article 157 of the Constitution. The Director of Public Prosecution undertakes state powers of prosecution. And the Constitution is very clear when it comes to prosecutions. It says the DPP shall, and when in any statute or in the Constitution the word shall is used, that means we interpret it as a mandatory provision. So the powers to prosecute are vested with the Director of Public Prosecutions as provided for under the Constitution, as well as the ODPP Act. And therefore, the beauty of our Constitution is that it establishes what the DPP calls tensions. Mr. Winnie has just stated the mandate of the EACC. Their mandate is to investigate and address issues of leadership, integrity, ethics, and anti-corruption issues. They bring the file to the DPP, and the DPP reviews the file. If there is sufficient evidence, the DPP is the one who makes the decision to charge where issues of ethics or corruption issues are involved. So the mandates are, we complement each other. One government agency investigates while the other government agency prosecutes. And that is very important, unlike in the past where you had the investigator also being the prosecutor. Someone arrests you, takes you to court and wants to prosecute you at the same time, there is no fair hearing. So under the new constitution, we have the right to fair hearing under Article 50, so that the one investigating you is not the same person who is going to prosecute the suspect in court. There is a different person who will review the file, and now in court there is another different arbiter, the judiciary, who will hear the case and make a determination. So that's the beauty of our constitution, and we work very well with the EACC. I think there has been a lot of interagency collaboration. So the DPP, in as far as prosecution is concerned, where the code of ethics, we have a code of ethics in the Public Officer Ethics Act. We also have a code of ethics for state officers in the Leadership and Integrity Act. And therefore, where those codes of ethics have been breached, these are agreed standards of behavior in the society, and they are legislated in the constitution itself under Chapter 6. These are agreed standards which leaders are supposed to abide by. So when these codes of ethics are breached, the file is brought to the DPP and someone is prosecuted. And from your introduction, some cases are ongoing in court where people are being prosecuted and charged for these offenses. The problem is that sometimes people politicize these processes. When someone is found to have breached the code of ethics or engaged in corrupt practices, they politicize. They say they are being targeted because they belong to this party or that party or from this tribe, and that is not true. In the recent past, we've seen lists being provided even by the DPP showing people from different communities. So when the file comes to the DPP, the only consideration is the evidence. If there is sufficient evidence to, it's not about tribe, it's not about party.
It's about
they look
evidence.
at the evidence before a decision to charge is made. And these political leaders or whoever is being charged or a suspect, they are very clever people. If you charge somebody where there is no evidence, they will rush to court and they will seek orders from the court to have the prosecution stop. They can also sue for malicious prosecution. So it is not true that someone is being targeted because of his tribe. It cannot happen. So the public should be aware when someone is charged for breaching ethical codes of conduct, let that person carry his own cross. Let him not come to you saying, I'm being targeted, I'm being targeted. When that person was stealing money or engaging in unethical practices, he was doing it for his own self, not for me, not for you, not for my community.
Just
so
for themselves.
For themselves.
But the question still begs, where do we get it wrong as a people? Because all these things look like should be common sense, but now we are saying there are institutions and there are laws that enforce this. I mean, in as much as we say man is inherently evil and must be controlled, but don't you think as a country we are really going off? And as we think about that, I just want to get Patrick's opinion on who do you consider an ethical leader? What do you look for? I mean, when you talk about ethics and a leader, what are you looking at?
Thank you, Anita, for that question. I think leadership, generally, we as a leader, one is there's a lot of expectations from a leader because one is actually expected to rally people to a certain desired objective or to get a vision. And leadership is cross-cutting. I think it starts from the family, schools, community, and then we get it up to the national level. And as a leader, there are some basic qualities that would be expected from any leader. Just like John Maxwell says that everything rises and falls on leadership. It means that one, there's a responsibility that leader is supposed to have, and two, issues on character, the qualities of that leader. Is he a person that can be relied on? What values does he have? Does he espouse? And four, essentially, as you lead, how is he able to relate with these people in terms of his leadership? And five, in terms of self-sacrifice, a leader goes out in terms of those that is leading, goes out of his way for those that is leading. And if I may come back in terms of even Chapter 6 and Leadership and Integrity Act, you will find that in 2010, Kenyans decided come up with a whole chapter on leadership. And that tells you that there was something that was not right. Essentially, as a nation, we decided that let us now entrench a whole chapter in terms of leadership, in terms of conduct, of what is expected of leaders, and of all those, what that chapter has actually brought out in terms of what is expected, what is the basic minimum, the guiding principles of leadership. And essentially, it has brought the issues of competence, it has brought the issues of integrity, which has been emphasized, and also it has brought the issue of conduct that brings honor to the nation, conduct that brings honor to that particular office the leader is, and the issue of self-sacrifice. But above all, in terms of leadership and public office, the golden thread that is running throughout Chapter 6 is that of public trust. And the trust aspect has actually been emphasized in the Constitution. So as a leader, we would expect issues of trust, issues of protecting public resources, and issues of also guiding people to the right direction. And above all, ethical leadership in terms of any leader should be a person of integrity.
But you're still getting it wrong as a country, and that's where we're here to discuss it. So maybe the question is, where in Chapter 6 do we need to clarify so that people understand in passing the new constitution, we had some aspirations, like Patrick says, and Chapter 6 is very clear, but we still seem to get it wrong, Mark. So where in Chapter 6 do you think we need to amplify and tell people this is what we said we want, and this is what we should go for in electing our leaders? Thank
you very much, Anita.
Yeah.
It's very good that we are discussing issues of leadership. And development happens within an ideology. So as Africans, we must have an ideology. We were comparing ourselves to the Asian tigers, the Indonesias, Malaysias, and the Chinese. So if you look at those countries, they have a lot of ideology. They are very strong ideologically. And even the way they dress, they don't just dress anyhowly. They dress to reflect some sort of ideology. So it has to start from the family level. We have those ethical standards which we acquired from our forefathers, which were supposed to glue the community together. So we must have a sense of direction, even from our own family itself, from the family unit. We must be able to guide our children. So as a father, as a mother, what ideology do you have? You cannot expect your child to go out there and be trained by the teacher while you abdicate your responsibility. So it must start from the family level. We must train our own children. We must have a sort of ideology as a people. We must not be people who are just confused. They don't know where they are going. They don't know where they are coming from. They don't know what they live by. For example, if you go to India, you'll find them dressing, the way they dress, they put on some sort of a cap. This is how Jawaharlal Nehru used to dress. So they consider him as a good leader because of the ethics he stood by. And they live by that code, they live by that standard, even in their way of life. So we must have an ideology, we must identify ourselves, who we are, and the Constitution attempts to do that. It states in Chapter 6 that any state office is a trust. A state office is a trust. It must be held in a manner that promotes respect for the people, in a manner that promotes national values. So when someone is holding a position of leadership in the community, we must remember that that position of leadership is a trust held for the people, on behalf of the people. It's not a privilege when someone is in a state office. It's supposed to be a trust, and that office, whether in private life or whether in public life, that leader or that state officer must abide by those ethical standards which are set forth in the Constitution itself. So we get it wrong as a people because we lose our sense of identity. We let us not expect these leaders only. We should not expect them to do everything for us, but it should first of all start from the family. Let us train our children, and then let us remember that these people who hold this leadership position, they hold them in trust for us. And whether in public life or in private life, they are supposed to abide by certain ethical standards. Unfortunately, as the public, we never hold them to account. It's like we have given them a free ticket to behave the way they want. For example,
And that's the why. Why do we
yes,
do that?
for we must engage in this civic sensitization.
Yeah.
And we must always remember that these people are holding positions of leadership in trust for us, and therefore we must hold them to account.
Yeah.
The problem is that we don't hold them to account, and we can do so, especially now that we are approaching the election. It is now the time for wananchi to hold these leaders in account. In Swahili we can say washikadau wale wakubwa ni wananchi, na wahamasishwe wajue kwamba hao ni washikadau and they are the bosses now. They are the bosses.
Yeah.
They can judge. They know these leaders very well. They know how those leaders have been behaving in private life.
And
they
in
know
public.
how they have been behaving in public life. Now elections are coming. Let them prepare. This is the time now for the wananchi. The ball is in their court.
To act as bosses.
To act as bosses.
Yes.
Let them not be the weakest link and elect people who don't have integrity. Because when they elect these same people who don't have integrity, and now they expect institutions
To act
to
on
come
their
and
behalf.
act and try to end corruption or unethical practices.
Yeah.
It's like they are doing the wrong thing and they're expecting the institutions to perform a miracle.
Yeah.
So we are all connected as a chain. We must all pull together so that this country can move forward. We must have an ideology as a country. We must know who we are, where we are coming from, and where we are
want to
going.
go. Yeah.
And we must all play our roles. It's not for the leader to ensure things happen. It's not for institutions. But wananchi pia ni washikadau wakubwa, and they also have to do their part.
Okay.
How many petitions have we had recalling, for example, a member of parliament for not performing? I don't recall any where wananchi have come forward saying they need to recall a member
I
of
think
parliament.
that really frustrates you, Patrick.
Yes. So they are expecting Patrick to
Yeah.
do it, and I don't think Patrick can do it alone.
Yeah.
The wananchi are there. They see this person every day.
Yeah.
The way he's using CDF money, the way he's conducting...
Misusing CDF money,
They know.
plundering resources.
Yes.
I mean, and then our services are just down there. We don't
Exactly.
have good. So
Yes.
what do you do, Patrick? I mean, what are some of those things you do as ESCC to hamasisha umma? I think I got that right.
Thank you, Anita,
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Just like what my colleague have said, essentially the public also have a duty in the fight against corruption and in promotion of ethical standards. And essentially, Article 10 of the Constitution actually clearly spells out we as a country, we agreed on some values. The question is that are we living as per those values that we agreed that we'll be living, we will be actually observing? And just like what you have indicated, the answer is no. We have not reached that expectation. And the question would be, where did the rain start beating us? And quite a number of things I think has happened, but all is not lost. What I would actually indicate is that we require what we may call social reengineering, and trying to, as a commission, what we have been doing. One of the areas has been public education in terms of outreach, just trying to sensitize the public about ethical living, about standards. The other aspect that we have also been involved in is schools. We have programs that have actually been targeting schools, because we are saying at times the saying that you may not teach the old dogs new tricks. We have been trying to get in touch with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, the former KIE, so that some of these issues on promotion of ethics, issues on integrity can actually be instilled in the young ones as they
from
grow.
primary school?
Right from the kindergarten, we have what we are calling the Adili clubs in the primary schools, which are clubs that are just there to promote issues on integrity. And then public sector, we have also been focusing on the public sector, but of importance also so that we cover everybody through the Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum. We have been actually having that forum. There is a forum that involves the public sector, private sector, and professional bodies. So we have been also trying to reach out through that sector so that we are able to reach the public at large. In terms
Have you been successful in getting this message out? How are you seeing the next election coming? Are we just going to repeat the same mistakes?
It is a continuous conversation that needs various partners. The message is going out. The message is going out, but as my colleague would say, at times you will find that those that are backsliding, and those that are backsliding, that is where now the enforcement needs to come in. So in my view, I think in as much as we also create public awareness, there's also need for enforcement. So that it's not only, it's both the carrot and the stick, so that it can be able to work well in terms of values. Issues of values are issues of attitudes, and at times in terms of changing attitudes, it takes long. It may not be overnight. For instance, if it's honest, if someone has decided to become dishonest, to reverse that would actually take...
Is that what you call social engineering now?
Social reengineering.
Reengineering.
Yeah, so it may not just be an overnight exercise, but all is not lost. I think it is something that we need to engage and have it as a continuous conversation, so that we make steps by steps. I'm sure we'll reach there.
Yeah.
And more so, more important as we are approaching elections, I think we need a lot of public awareness. We need to get more partners in this so that the public actually, things like corruption, things like unethical conduct also thrive in ignorance. But if we have also an informed citizenry, that will help them in terms of making right choices, right decisions on who to elect, so that we actually let them know that those positions are positions of trust. The people they are electing are actually should be able to protect their resources, not to plunder them. So I think those are the messages that
should go across.
And we are doing that. We have been doing that continuously. As we also approach the National Anti-Corruption Day, we are also trying that will be on the 9th of December.
Okay.
So we are also trying just to sensitize and having programs at various regions, so that we are also able to let the people know what is expected of them.
Okay. Do you think like Chapter 6, enforcing of Chapter 6 is softer on people who hold public office and tougher on Mwananchi? Like if I'm to apply a job right now and they want to apply Chapter 6, it will be harsher on me than it would be on, say, a PS or a CS. Because we just see them changing jobs. Are you maybe looking at getting Parliament to amend some of these laws? Like even the penalties given to people who are charged with these crimes?
Thank you, Anita, for that question. I think what we may need to make the distinction between the ethical, perhaps, threshold and the criminal threshold.
Oh, yes.
So that becomes a point of conversation, because I would say that the law is there to apply across the board, even Chapter 6, for those seeking or aspiring to occupy public office, and for those that are already in public office. For those that are aspiring, we have what we are calling integrity vetting, in terms of just checking the checking on the character of that particular person. The person fills in the self-declaration form as required by the Leadership and Integrity Act, and essentially the Commission would look at that and then give a report. The same happens also to those that are in public office, in terms of the reports that the Commission also would, a similar approach would also be taken for even the approval bodies like Parliament. They would actually want to get a report in terms of compliance with Chapter 6 from the Commission, which the Commission, EACC, gives from time to time. The only challenge at times in terms of those recommendations, you will find that you may have given a recommendation that perhaps the person may not have fully met Chapter 6 provisions, but in one way or the other, you may find that the person getting through, and those are some of the challenges that we have been having. Part of it is also in the law, the Leadership and Integrity Act, that was also supposed to help implement Chapter 6. We have made various amendments and proposed various amendments to Parliament for legislative amendments, so that it can tighten the loose ends.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark, do you think there should be stiffer penalties for things like hate speech, things like corruption? Because maybe where the gap is in the laws, in the is it the punishment? I don't want to say punishment, but in how we treat people convicted of hate speech and how we treat people convicted of these crimes, of economic crimes. Should there be stiffer penalties?
Well, I think there is always need to review legislation, and it will be reviewed periodically after getting views from the public and from different stakeholders.
Now we know public participation matters.
It matters a lot. It matters a lot. For example, we are just getting feedback from you that maybe the penalties should be stiffer. Well, I think they should, especially for economic crimes, they should be stiffer. And even for hate speech, the penalties should be much stiffer, so that because it has the potential of even causing genocide.
Yes.
It has the potential of causing widespread violence, and so the penalties should be reviewed. Perhaps stiffer penalties can also be a deterrent to commission of an offense, because when someone knows that at the first instance, if he's convicted, he's only likely to get away with a fine without a jail time, and he has the money to pay the fine, he will pay the fine and he will continue engaging in hate speech and incitement.
And most of the times they actually afford the fine.
They can afford.
It's just something on their M-Pesa and they move on.
Exactly. And sentencing is a function of the judiciary. It's not a function of the DPP.
Or the ESCC.
Or the ESCC. We will take people to court, we will lay our case before the court, and after someone gets convicted, we will only submit to the court as to the mitigating factors, whether there are any, or on issues of sentencing, we can make submissions to the court, whether there are any circumstances that we feel whether there are any circumstances to persuade the court to mete out a harsher penalty, we can submit. But ultimately,
but they're not bound to.
Yes, it's the court that makes that decision to sentence. But yes, we need to review legislation time and again to ensure that it reflects
our aspirations.
Exactly,
really. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm just wondering, Patrick, we are headed to the election. People, I think every person you see campaigning has a case. Is it really, can we find, I'm about to become biblical now, can we find one person who will say, I am not dotted at all by these cases? And if not, then are you working with IBC to see how, like I keep hearing conversations about why are they still allowed to run? Is it something you have a discussion with IBC about? Is it something that is on the table?
Thank you. Just like what you have said, I think as a nation, or in Kenya, we do not have short of people with integrity. We have them. And
really? They're angels.
they are. Yeah. But there are those situations where we are seeing that those that have been charged are still running for elections. And essentially what I would say is that in terms of sieving out people, we need, this is it should be a multi-approach taken in looking into this, and I would portion this liability or responsibility partly to the political parties. Political parties also have a role in terms of those that they are presenting for elections to ensure that they are also people of integrity. Then secondly, the ultimate decision relies with the voter, the wananchi. They are doing that. But the law also has provisions in terms of those that are presenting themselves for election. For instance, for elections of members of parliament, you find in Article 99 of the Elections Act, and some of the reasons, some of the conditions given are that a person needs to be registered as a voter, he has to meet the educational, moral, and moral requirements, and there are other areas also that the Constitution brings out in terms of prohibitions when somebody has been sentenced to 6 months imprisonment.
You see, that's the point now I think we need to really look at as a people. Why do we wait until somebody is convicted? Why can't we just say for as long as there's a story about you on corruption and all these things in courts, don't run, wait. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you will find that also the Constitution, you look at Article 99(2), which says that or any person that have found to have contravened any law or misused public office, or has been found to have contravened Chapter 6 of the Constitution. So essentially that would mean any person perhaps found to have been involved in hate speech, that should actually stand, or any person found to have been plundered public resources, that should stand. But again, the almost a clause that you will find quite a number of those that perhaps are in office, those that present themselves for election with criminal cases, you'll find them seeking refuge in Article 99 sub-article 3 or 119 or 99 sub-article 3 or 193 sub-article 3, which says that unless the person, unless the appeal has been exhausted or review has been actually had. So in most cases, those that are in court, they will actually relying on that provision, and Article 50 saying that I'm innocent until proved guilty. And to me, that is, we are placing a lot of... Is it
self-defeating to some extent?
We are placing a lot of emphasis on the criminal threshold as opposed to ethical threshold. So those are some of the teething problems perhaps that we just need to work around in terms of legislation and in terms of even constitutional interpretation, so that we get it right as far as electing or presenting people with criminal cases or integrity issues for elections.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any sensitization? Are you engaging the political class? Like, do you invite them over and take them through what is expected of them, for example? I don't know, because I feel like they don't get it, you know? They are out there with impunity, blatantly, still going out to ask for our votes. And then they appeal to our emotions. And because I think we are all brought up nicely and right, we are all Christians and we are religious, we just say, okay, amesema pole, let's just vote him back in. So do you have a sensitization program for the political class?
We do. First, before they are elected, we have those they will fall under the public awareness programs that are there. But even for those that have been elected, generally we have quite a number of programs in terms of promotion of ethics and integrity, the do's and the don'ts, what are the obligations. And generally for the parliament, we involve them from time to time during inductions, and then from time to time. For the county assemblies, we have quite a number of programs that we have also been running with the county assemblies in the 47 county assemblies, the county executive and even the county assemblies, just trying to bring them to speed on the obligations, the do's and the don'ts, and in terms of promotion of ethics and integrity.
All right. I hope you also work with religious institutions. We are so religious, yet we are so plagued with so many problems that you hope religion would solve.
Thank you, Anita, for that. Just reminding me of that. Yeah. We do have a lot of programs with the faith-based institutions in schools, and quite a number of programs we do with them because essentially, as a country, you will find in one way or the other, one subscribes to a certain faith, and essentially either for Christians you'll find them every day, or on a Sunday they are there. Those are in church, mosques and all that, and we have been working with them very, very closely. We have quite a number of programs we are running with faith-based in schools, and even in terms of sensitization of the public and the faithful.
All right, so we're just winding up, and then maybe Mark, on the decision to charge say hate speech, what are the challenges you have?
Thank you very much, Anita. First of all, before I comment on the decision to charge hate speech cases and the challenges experienced, I would like to just comment on what Mr. Winyi has addressed, the fact that under the Constitution, someone is not barred to vie for election of political office until all avenues of appeal have been exhausted. Even after that person has been convicted in a court of law,
he can appeal.
He can appeal, and unless all avenues of appeal or review have been exhausted, he can still vie. That's a constitutional provision, and therefore, even after conviction, you find them still vying for political office. So the wananchi should know, as the stakeholders, washikadau, that this person might be having an appeal pending because he has been convicted and he still goes to the court of appeal. But now this is the time now for the wananchi to exercise their judicial duty as a voter. You can now judge this person based on his ethical standards. Don't look at the legal standards, appeals and all that and technicalities. As a voter now you have the power in your hands, you are going to vote. You know this person very well, his private life and his public life, how he has been behaving. It's now for the wananchi to decide. If you decide as a wananchi, your decision is final. This person cannot appeal anywhere.
But you're just one vote.
They need to know that, and that one vote is very important. If you vote wisely, it will make a difference. It will count. If you don't vote wisely, you vote on other consideration. Vote based on values, ethics, and integrity. Those should be your guiding factor as a mwananchi, and we want to hamasisha them. We want to sensitize them to exercise that vote wisely. And then when we go to court, we have seen recently the judiciary has been making orders barring people from accessing public office, people when the cases are going on. That is good jurisprudence which is developing, so that when someone's case is going on, he can be barred. There can be an order when someone is admitted to bail, for example. We can have the court making some conditions that he
Are you the ones to make the recommendations?
we can apply to court.
Yeah.
We can apply to court that yes, okay, let him be admitted to bail, but can he be barred from accessing that office? Because when he accesses that office, he makes it difficult for the prosecution, because he will definitely intimidate the witnesses. He will mess up with the records which we need to rely on in court. So let him be barred from accessing the public office. This will make it very difficult for the criminal suspect to even operate as a public officer, whether as an elected officer or an appointed officer. So the court can also assist us in making suitable orders so that these people who are suspected of having engaged in criminal conduct do not access public office. Because if you have an animal in your sheep pen, it looks like a leopard and it's at night. You don't allow it to roam freely. You lock it somewhere so that when day comes, you can be able to see clearly whether it's a leopard or a sheep. But when you allow it to roam, so that you will find out in the morning whether it was a leopard, it will have killed many years. So make sure you lock it first out. As he exhausts those avenues of appeal or revision, lock him away from accessing public funds. Because when you allow a hyena to access public funds, definitely you will not have any justice. Now on hate speech, yes, we do have challenges, because number one, these people who engage in hate speech are very clever. They try to coin their speech in such a way that when he is brought to court, he will say, no, I was just trying to say this, and I didn't mean to say this. So they speak in a way that you will need an anthropologist, an expert to come to court.
Really?
And yes, we need experts. We need an expert to come to court, because hate speech also depends on social context. When I say something here in Nairobi and I say the same thing in Turkana, it will mean something different. So it's contextual from community to community. So you need experts to come to court. Some of these experts are not readily available to the state. So we need anthropologists, for example. These are people who can come and testify to the court as to the social setting when that speech, the context within that speech was made. So people who engage in hate speech, they are very clever. They speak they make innuendos and speak in words which cannot be easily sometimes deciphered, and they know very well that it's an offense, so they don't make it very open sometimes. And sometimes you also have challenges with the electronic recording, because the only evidence you need, he made it on, you need electronic evidence, and producing electronic evidence sometimes can be a challenge. You just alluded to a case where hate speech was recorded, and Madam Obuo was talking about it, and when it came, the matter came to court, the journalist did not bring the clip in court. So we need people to cooperate. If it's the media and they come across such clips, sometimes then it's good to cooperate with the prosecution and the investigative agencies. Let them avail the evidence. Let us not look at profits over our national interests. Let us also ensure that when, as a media, the media has a very big role to play if you come across hate speech, because they record these things, cooperate with the investigative agency as a witness, and also avail the electronic recording. So these are some of the challenges. Without people coming forward to testify, it is going to be very difficult for the state, either as the investigative agencies or the prosecution agencies, to adduce evidence in court.
All right. We are running out of time, but I'll just ask one question from Michael. In the last election, the IEBC gave a list of people who had questionable characters, who are not fit to hold public office, but they all vied for office, and a majority of them hold the various offices today. Whose role is it to enforce? Is it yours, Patrick?
Thank you. I think each and every institution has a role. The IBC under Article 88 H, you will find them. They have the final ultimate mandate to register a person in the ballot. But essentially what I would say, it is each and every institution, because in terms of enforcement of the Constitution, in terms of Article 6, Article 10, values, the IEBC also has that mandate to ensure that those that are actually being presented for elections are people that comply with Chapter 6 as one of the requirements. So in as much as EACC will be doing something about it, there were those litigations that we went to court challenging some of those elections, and some of those petitions did not go favorably, but that all in all is not lost. I think there are some litigation around the Chapter 6, so that we believe that if courts also will be able to pronounce itself, come up with some jurisprudence, it will also help to fill in the gaps that may be in the law, and what you are calling perhaps some contradictions that may be there in the Constitution. So we are looking for purposive interpretation of the Constitution around it, so that some of those gaps we are able to address them. The ethical criminal threshold that has been bringing a lot of issues. And we hope going forward we will be able to address that.
Yes. Does the election period worry you? Does it keep you busy? Because people know there's money everywhere. Where does it come from?
It does. It does as a commission, and essentially we have put in various strategies in place. In terms of public awareness, we are trying to ensure that the public are informed. But also in resources, in terms of resources, there's also plundering of resources towards elections. So this worries us. We are on the
because they behave like they are clearing high school. So chafua kaende.
It is true. It is true. So that also worries us. We are on the watch out, because so you find around that time also a lot of resources are being plundered by those that are leaving offices. So it worries us as a commission, and then those that are being, in terms of enforcement of Chapter 6, those that are actually presenting themselves for elections. So even as a commission, we are concerned. We would want actually clean leaders so that they come, and you are seeing the issue of resources, the issues of corruption everywhere, and one of the reasons we are having that is the kind of people we elect into those offices. So it worries us as a commission, and that is why we are also working with various stakeholders to ensure that at least we get it right, we get right people in place. But again, I will throw it to the
citizens.
To the citizen. The Wanjiku is sovereign, and the proverbial
Wanjiku has been reduced to almost nothing. Like, your vote does not count half the time.
It still counts, because she or he has the final say in terms of that ballot. The one ballot means a lot, and I think we should just try to empower them, to sensitize them, so that they know the kind of person, how to do what we may call social vetting, so that we get the right leaders. So I think this is a conversation that we need both state and non-state actors to come and help. All is not lost. I think this time.
I like the way you say all is not lost. Yes, and yet Wanjiku here is very worried. Does social media worry you? Because I may not say it out there, but I'll type it out. True. I'll post it. Does it worry you? Are you looking at that?
Yes, social media worries me a lot, because it's a very powerful tool to reach out to the masses. It's a platform through which people can engage with each other, share ideas. But unfortunately, people are abusing that freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of social media by posting a lot of poisonous rhetoric, especially now that we are heading into an election year. So it does worry. But
can a post be used as evidence, a social media post?
Yes, as Madam our Chief of Staff in the earlier clip alluded to, we have various laws, as she stated, which are there to ensure that people who make such poisonous rhetoric on social media are dealt with. So we are working closely with the other government agencies, the Communication Authority of Kenya. We are working with the National Cohesion and Integration Commission to ensure that people who make such posts can be dealt with. It's not an easy task, but we will continue through a whole of government approach to ensure that those who engage the public through social media by making such hateful remarks are dealt with. So the government is not sleeping. We are keeping our eyes wide open, especially as we head into an election year. Those who are culpable, I am sure the investigative agencies are up to the task. They should be able to apprehend them and bring the files to the Director of Public Prosecution.
For prosecution.
Yes.
All right, we have to come to an end of this discussion. Again, we need to honor the time. We had promised that you're going to keep 1 hour, and it's been 1 hour already. And I hope we can have this discussion again sometime soon. I still have so many questions about corruption and election. What are we going to do as a country so that we are not faced with the same problems the next 5 years? Because you see what's happening now, the public service, what we expect from the government is not given to us because there's none. Money is just plundered and people are stealing left, right, and center. And we really need to reassess that. And of course, the family unit as well, because clearly it begins from the family, right? So I don't know, any final words? Because I just want to wind up now.
Thank you, Anita. What I would tell the listeners, the viewers, is that all is not lost. We still need ethical leadership. And we need to elect leaders of integrity. That will be the hallmark and that will be the game changer in the fight against corruption and in good governance for this country.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mark?
I will say that a state is made up of 4 things: government, sovereignty, territory, and the people. Sovereignty vests with the masses. The people, the voice of the people is the voice of God. So the people should not be idle. They should be very vigilant. They should speak. They should be engaged in civic. They should be aware of their civic duties to put the leaders they elect to account. They should always hold their leaders to account, and they should have an ideology right from the family unit. So the leaders we elect, they reflect who we are. So let us engage them. Let us hold them to account. Let us exercise our vote wisely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much for those who joined us on our platforms. Thank you for engaging with us. Unfortunately, we have to wind up, but there's always an opportunity to discuss this further. We've talked about ethics, we've talked about integrity, leadership, and of course, the political season that we are in right now. And from the experts, they say the onus is on us as citizens. Mark, the teacher, says sovereignty, rest with the people. That's what you said?
Yes, rest with the masses.
Yes, rest with the masses. And Patrick, the optimist, says nothing is lost. We are still on a good course. We can still change the course of our country by electing leaders of integrity, good integrity, who will take care of us in the next 5 years. So, kazi kwako, kazi kwangu, exercise your one vote wisely and choose the leader that you want, because ultimately our leadership are a reflection of who we are. And you can see what's going on currently. Clearly, we need our meeting with ourselves. And of course, we start from the house. I want to wish you a very good Friday. And I want to wish you a weekend of rest and a blessed week ahead. Catch up with us next week and see what we have for you on the ODPP Café. And I hope, just like me, you've learned, you keep learning. And of course, knowledge is power. God bless. Thank you.